let's move on to immutable operations. Not immutable JS. We're not using immutable JS, but we're going to talk about immutable operations, especially leveraging things in ES 2015 and TypeScript. Pretty cool stuff. So we're going to talk about why immutable, how to avoid array mutations, object mutations, and helpful immutable tools. So why immutable? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I can't name all of them because I don't know all of them. But some good reasons are like everything is a value, so it's a lot quicker to detect if values are different versus having to look deeply inside of an object, which is what you would have to do in something like Angular 1, which is obviously very inexpensive when you got to a crazy amount of data. So that's one thing. Advanced minimization, like I said, better change detection. Easier to test. I think because it's easier to reason about, it's easier to test. But I wouldn't say it's easier to test. It's easier to think about, which makes it testing less challenging, I would say. But you still got to write just as much test. It's not like there's less code you got to write. You still got to write some code.
Well, by doing immutable, your code becomes smaller. Therefore, your overall project is easier to test.
Yeah.
Because you're not having to do like defensive copying. It reduces basically your entire surface area of your code.
Yes. So, how do we handle? How do we become immutable with our data types? Well, yeah, we can use libraries like Immutable.js that we'll talk about soon, or we can just use some of the stuff built into JavaScript now and just being smart about it. I recommend actually just like staying away from the libraries at first, just to practice immutability on yourself and mess around with operations like we're going to talk about, and just get used to them. And then that way you can switch over to Immutable.js when you kind of understand what's going on. So things that we can use are concat, slice, the spread operator, which depending on what transpiler you're using, you can do object.spread and or array.spread, which is awesome. TypeScript doesn't have object.spread. I was complaining to Lucas about that for the last week. So that's like my favorite feature ever. It's just amazing. But they do have array.spread, array.map filter, and object.assign, which is like extend or merge. So those are some of the operations we can use. So here's just like a simple reducer you might see in an Angular app or in the Redux pattern. So the highlighted code right here where we're on the create item action type, you can see that we are returning a brand new array with the current state, which is an array, spread it over this brand new array, plus the payload, which is a single item. So it creates a new array. This is equivalent of doing something like concat with those two items in it, which creates a new array. Everybody see that? That syntax right there is the exact same equivalent of having a new array and saying .concat, passing in state, and passing in payload. On this next one here on the delete item, we're using the filter method, which also returns a new array. And we're just going to filter out anything that doesn't pass this predicate. So that's an easy win. That's a simple win using the filter method. On this next one, the update. So objects are kind of easy to deal with immutability. Arrays get tricky, but objects are pretty simple. We're doing the map here, which again, just like filter, is going to return a new array. But then down below, where if the IDs match, instead of just grabbing the item with the ID that matches the payload ID and just updating its property, instead of saying, yeah, item dot whatever now equals payload dot whatever, instead of doing that, which is mutating the state of the item, we just create a new object with object.assign, and we assign all the properties over to the left, which is an empty object, and that creates a new object for us. If you were using Babel and had the object.spread operator, you could just spread it over. It's so clean, but we don't have it, unfortunately. I think they're going to have it in TypeScript 2.0 though. Cool. Any questions on that stuff? Just get used to doing this. Like, you're going to be doing this a lot. If you've already used React and Redux, you already know what I'm talking about. Like, you do this all the time. And it gets crazier, especially when you want to go, you'll see in a minute, when you need to update something in an array. That's when it starts getting crazy.